Hi, I'm Cameron.
And I'm Hayden.
And this is
Until the End of Crime. So Cameron.
Yes?
I need to know. So tell me, have you downloaded the most recent episode of Until the End of Crime?
Oh, I've definitely downloaded the most recent episode of Until the End of Crime.
And you listened to it?
That's rude.
And then after you listened...
You know what? I have listened to it. And by that, I mean I played it for the dogs while I was gone.
Oh, okay. So you've downloaded, you've listened, and now you went and gave us a 5-star rating and review.
Yes, I definitely, no doubt about it, gave us 5 stars.
Okay, perfect. And that's what we need all of you to do too.
Yes, please, listeners, take a moment right now to go to Apple Podcast is the most helpful place for you to go to give us the 5-star rating. Even if that's not where you listen, that just helps us more than any other platform.
It drives traffic to the podcast.
Absolutely.
So please, 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 like Sabrina Carpenter says.
I think she sings it. I think you have to.
She does. You can sing it this time. So please, please, please don't embarrass me, motherfucker. Download and review the podcast. Okay. Are you ready for today's actual question?
I sure am.
Tell me what you know about the expression, all that glitters is not gold.
The expression, all that glitters is not gold, just means that you can see something that maybe looks promising or appealing or rewarding in some way, but it ultimately could be nothing, a waste of your time, a waste of your energy, a waste of your resources. It's almost like in The Wizard of Oz. The great and powerful Oz is just a man behind a curtain.
Right.
And we'll get to see more of how that plays out when part 2 of Wicked is released later this year. Not soon enough. 2025 has been long.
Yeah. You know, when I think about all that glitters is not gold as an expression, okay, let me be honest. I'm going to be really honest with you and the listeners. I thought the phrase was...
Is this you steering away from how you typically lie to all of us?
I'm being
straight to
really
our face?
vulnerable right now. And I thought the saying was, all that glitters is gold.
Oh.
I think that's what I thought the Smash Mouth lyrics were. All that glitters is gold from the All-Star song. Do you know what you know what I'm talking about?
I do know the song. I have seen Shrek.
Yeah. So I thought it was all that glitters is gold, but I guess it's not gold. But I thought the meaning was, oh, well, if something is pretty, if something is appearing good, it is good. It's your perception. But now that I know that the phrase is actually all that glitters is not gold, it does make more sense. It does add a little more nuance to what the phrase actually means.
It's like if you saw a little piece of something shiny in the middle of the road and you thought it was a dime, but you got to it and you realized it was just a little piece of aluminum foil.
Yeah.
Or aluminium.
Well, and like obviously the most apt and direct analogy is pyrite, fool's gold,
right?
Which isn't real gold.
Yeah.
Which isn't to say it's not beautiful, shiny, shimmery, splendid. Anyway, so today's case really made me think of all that glitters is not gold. Also, just for your knowledge, I really got curious about this expression, and this expression comes from an earlier expression that originated in the 12th through the 13th century. And our modern version, all that glitters is not gold. Can you guess where it comes from?
Geographically? What do you mean where it comes from?
Who's the originator? The progenitor?
Oh, probably Shakespeare.
Yeah, Willie S. He originated the actual phrase we use now, that all that glitters is not gold.
Fan of his work.
100%. So I'm going to open today's case with my favorite quote from the perpetrator of this case.
Okay.
The only thing I'm guilty of is being Shah-mazing. On Bravo's The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, Jen Shah was more than just a television personality.
Are you seriously telling me a housewife?
I am telling you the story of Jen Shah.
Was this born of my idea of covering Abby Lee Miller?
You said Dance Moms and I said Real Housewives.
Yeah, but I took that off the table. I would have covered that months ago if I was going to go through with it.
Oh, you should have, because I'm going to have so much fun today. This is a melding of my favorite things. True crime and the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, which the rumor is that Lisa Barlow quit the show. And I fucking hope it's true. I can't stand Lisa Barlow, but that's not really important for the case.
Am I going to be able to follow any of this?
Yeah, it's not about the Real. I mean, it is about the Real Housewives, but it's not about the Real Housewives.
It feels like it's about the Real Housewives.
Yeah, because it's Jen Shah, but it's not. You're going to get the story whether we talk about Real Housewives or not.
Okay, I'm excited.
So again, Jen Shah was more than just a television personality. She was a phenomenon. With her designer wardrobe.
Wasn't she a phenomenon?
With her, so stupid. With her designer.
Amazing. Amazing.
Listen,
look, she likes a portmanteau. I'm just giving it to her.
I'm going to get to this later, but that quote, the only thing I'm guilty of is being Shaw amazing. If you don't watch The Real Housewives, you may not be aware that every franchise, every season, the women have to come up with a new tagline for the season. And
I've seen the playoff of it on season 7 of Drag Race, where they had to put tape on their face and then do their like Housewives tagline.
Yeah. And Jen Shah, the only thing I'm guilty of is being Shaw amazing, is the tagline she developed after she was arrested and was still on the show. And when you watch it, now I watched the series after Jen Shah had suffered the consequences or was getting the consequences of her actions. And as I watch it, I couldn't help but think, wow, this bitch is bold, making her tagline the only thing I'm guilty of is being Shaw amazing. It was so outrageous. It is outrageous.
It's a little reminiscent to me of, and I think that I'm about to mention the name of another housewife, but I don't know for sure that she's a housewife. Teresa Giudice.
Yes.
Okay. When she was on House of Villains, she talked a lot about her time in prison, the time that she went to prison. And she really wanted it to seem like it wasn't something that she was wearing proudly. But I think she probably needed to process the fact that she went to prison because she brought it up so much.
You know, what's really funny, I didn't watch it. I haven't watched that show, but I'm sure I will, just like I started watching Traitors. Teresa, I saw in a clip where when Monica Garcia was on, her response was, oh, she's a snitch, right? Like when Monica Garcia came on to talk to them and she was like, oh, she's the snitch. She's the one that told.
On House of Villains?
Yeah.
Maybe. Was Monica Garcia the person who was voicing?
Yes.
Okay.
And Joel McHale introduced her. And she looked around at all of the other like house guests and was like, oh, she's the snitch. She's the tattletale.
Talking about Teresa, or Teresa said it about Monica?
Teresa said it about Monica.
Okay. I remember there being something, but I was like, this is too far removed from anything that I know about. I'm here for Candy Muse, is who I believe was on that same season.
Well, Monica Garcia is the snitch in this case. This is exactly what Teresa Giudice was talking about.
Look at me, accidentally bringing it right back around. Right back around.
Yeah, exactly. And that's so funny. I didn't even really include Monica in this episode, but she was one of the primary snitches.
Party.
I guess we'll call her an informant. Snitch is so ugly. Okay. Jen Shah was a phenomenon. With her designer wardrobe, her lavish parties, and her signature Shaw Squad at her side, she embodied a life of unrestrained opulence. I was waiting for you to say something about opulence.
Do you feel like I've already derailed us enough?
I mean, maybe, but I just thought opulence would really take you to Mercedes Amon Diamond.
Yeah, you own everything.
Yeah, there you go. Every on-screen moment, from private jet entrances to exclusive soirees at the rented Shaw Ski Chalet, painted a picture of wealth beyond imagination. But behind the glitz and glamour lay a secret that few could fathom. The extravagant lifestyle, the endless supply of couture and private jets, none of it was built on a legitimate business acumen.
You think those things are hard to imagine? That's the life I live.
Yeah. When you go to sleep at night. Instead, a meticulously orchestrated fraud had been quietly fueling her every indulgence for nearly a decade.
Doesn't that explain most people who have wealth, new wealth in particular?
There is a level of fraud, of
Yeah.
dishonesty, of questionable ethics.
No ethical billionaires.
No, there's no such thing as an ethical billionaire.
Right.
While millions tuned in to admire Jen's larger-than-life persona, a darker reality was unfolding off camera, behind every luxurious purchase and every extravagant celebration. And when we talk about extravagant celebrations, I'm talking about...
Like my Super Sweet 16 from MTV back in the day. Like how those 16-year-olds were having crazy, crazy stuff, but put that on an adult level.
Listen, in the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City... I can't remember if it's season 1 or 2, but Jen Shah is like really good friends with Meredith. And she says, Meredith, I'm going to throw you a birthday party at the Shah Ski Chalet. She tells her 2 weeks before her birthday, I think. Maybe even just a week. And in that week, she spent over $80,000 flying in, I believe, Tongan dancers to do Jen Shah's like dances from her heritage, her Tongan heritage, at her friend's birthday party that she's throwing for her, but is everything that Jen Shah likes, including half-naked men and the food that she likes. But it was a birthday for Meredith Marks.
I was going to say, wait, whose birthday party was this?
It was so crazy.
This was a party for Jen Shah that she was claiming was for somebody else.
She said it was for her friend Meredith.
Okay.
And what's crazy is she throws the birthday party on one of the women's actual birthday. It was Lisa Barlow's actual birthday. And Lisa Barlow went to Meredith's birthday party that was thrown by Jen, that was really for Jen, that was over $80,000.
I was speaking to the mother of a teenager last week, and she was telling me something that sounded so similar to this surrounding 15-year-olds' birthdays.
I believe that.
No, of course you do, because what you're saying to me is very high school teenage behavior.
It was crazy. And it's funny because everyone on the show was like, this isn't a birthday for Meredith. This is for Jen Shah. And then you don't find out until the reunion that it actually happened on Lisa's birthday. Oh, God, I just love it. It's so good.
But also, it was probably something that production created. Production was like, Jen, throw a party for Meredith on this day that happens to be Lisa's birthday.
Right now, Jen Shah, she didn't need to be produced. Honey, she was the producer. Jen Shah made up her storylines. She was ready to go. That she might be a fraudster, but Bravo, I bet they didn't have to do a damn thing.
Those are the best people to produce. Because you have to give them you don't even have to give them a good reason. They're like, oh, let's do this. Let's make good TV.
I'm just saying, I don't even think they had to come up with the idea. I also think that she just wanted to get under Lisa Barlow's skin.
Okay. You know more than I do.
If you would indulge me and watch The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, you would know what I'm talking about.
I know that you have already paid off my Peacock subscription people to automatically play Real Housewives stuff after the Traders or Deal or No Deal Island is over.
That just makes sense.
Every time.
Did you see Gabby Wendy's? Oh, I haven't finished the Traders, but I saw on Instagram that she won. And
she's like, give me my money.
Yes.
Her rose is winning, even though she hasn't seen a penny. And her thorn is that she hasn't seen a penny. Give me my money. She
was like, everyone at Bravo, NBC Peacock knows that I haven't gotten my money. Mm-hmm. And then Andy Cohen's like, I'm sure it's coming. Mm-hmm.
Somebody said that they're glad that she's taking every bit of the publicity to make sure that she's holding them all accountable. I'm like, are you serious? These people... There were 4 winners. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, 4-1. And I'm like, they're really only getting like 20,000 something each before taxes. Give them the fucking money.
Right. Stan Gabby. I love Gabby. She said what her tagline would be if she was a housewife. And it was, I'm quick to cut you off, but I'm a lesbian, so I like to scissor.
Okay.
And then she was like, Dylan Efron over here, he helped me come up with it. This is partially his fault. So, love Gabby. Love listening to Long Winded. I think she's amazing. Her piece about Diva Cups took me out. I think I told you that.
You did. I haven't indulged in that either, though.
You should. It's so funny. It's so funny. I mean, I'm not a woman. I can't understand the pain or experience of being a woman, but she made it sound so funny. Behind all of these luxurious purchases and extravagant celebrations, there was a calculated scheme targeting the most vulnerable, elderly, and working class individuals.
Would she do a Ponzi scheme?
Kind of.
Yeah.
Lured with promises of financial freedom and exclusive business opportunities that never materialized. It wasn't overspending. It was the engine of a massive and predatory fraud. Picture this.
Sicily.
A reality TV set staged in front of Heather Gay's Laser Lab bar. I can't remember the name of her cosmetic place, but beauty bar, beauty lab. The women of the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City were preparing on going on a trip together. Everyone in their designer duds waiting. Whitney Rose and Lisa Barlow in the middle of a feud because, duh, what else do they do? Then Jen Shah receives a phone call, one that sends her reeling. She goes from laughing, talking about snacks, being with the other women, to suddenly becoming reclusive and sharing that she had to leave. She had to go. Something was wrong with Coach, her husband, Coach Shah. Only for moments later after her leaving, federal agents and New York police pulling up on the scene in Salt Lake City, and shaking down the women and producers at Bravo for information on Jen Shah's whereabouts. That is one of the episodes of the season, and it's crazy to see these women preparing and being on this like shuttle bus together. And then all of a sudden Jen Shah's like, oh, I'm so sorry, Coach Shah's sick. He's going to die. I've got to go to the hospital. And then she's arrested. And literally on this car ride that they're all going on, they start getting the notifications and the updates that she's been arrested for fraud. It is wild.
In my mind, they are on the bus to go to the party.
They were headed to maybe Aspen.
I know that they're not on the bus going to the party, but in my mind, they are. Okay. I'm trying to follow.
Mm-hmm. That was just the intro.
Yeah, I'm trying to follow because I do think there's a little bit of needing to know these people.
You don't need to know anything other than I mentioned Whitney Rose and Lisa Barlow. They're just two women who are on The Real Housewives. Heather Gay is on The Real Housewives with Jen Shah, or was. Meredith Marks was another who was on the show, but none of them have any kind of connection to Jen's crimes. The closest we get is on the bus when the women start receiving the notifications that Jen was arrested. They're all having this reflective moment of, well, where did Jen's wealth come from? Because Jen was always in designer. She was always doing these lavish parties. It seemed like she had a never-ending supply of money. And as they're all kind of trying to understand it, Lisa Barlow is calling all of her 5 lawyers to ask what she should do, if she should distance herself from Jen while she's on the bus. Nuts. And they kind of start asking Whitney. Well, Whitney says, I think I understand what she did. And what Whitney does is she kind of lays out the business model that Jen had talked about that they utilized, and then kind of started to explore what fraud in that industry might look like. And that's what I'm about to get to.
Okay.
So does that kind of catch you up on what I was talking about?
Yes.
I'm going to take a moment to stop and tell you that before the dazzling lights of reality TV, Jen Shah lived a pretty traditional life. She was born of Hawaiian and Tongan heritage and lived in Salt Lake City, Utah, and was raised in the Mormon faith. Growing up in a household that really prized conformity to the Mormon faith, Jen often found herself wrestling with the weight of tradition. As a young girl, she knew that to stand out, she would have to forge her own path, and eventually that path would need to redefine who she was. Jen Shah has talked about how she always knew that she wasn't going to fit into those guidelines of what normal would be for her, and almost this idea that she knew she was always destined for something more. During her college years at the University of Utah in the 1990s, Jen's life really began to change. She met Sharif Shah, a charismatic and ambitious football coach whose energy really complemented her own. And their connection was immediate, and they married in 1994, embarking on a partnership that redefined her personal and professional trajectory. Her first son, Sharif Jr., when he was born, Jen decided there needed to be more consistency across their family's spiritual life, And although she had been raised a Mormon, she did not want to have a faith that contradicted her husband's. And when confronting Sharif about him potentially converting to Mormonism versus her converting to Islam, he kind of introduced her to the idea that the Mormon church used to be racist. I don't want any heat from the Mormon church. So that's I'm going to say allegedly, that is how some people perceive it. But I think they did have like information that said that Black people were less than white people, like very clearly. Heather Gay has talked about it.
Well, but what you said is that he said they used to be racist.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that's a reflection of your thoughts.
Right.
It was very clear to me that this was not coming from you. It was coming from a Black man.
I just wanted to make it clear. I'm not looking for any Mormon smoke. So now,
Hayden still wants to go to Swig.
I have no interest in putting milk in a fucking soda. I can tell you that.
Those orders that they create on Secret or Mom Talk or whatever, Secret Lives of Mormon Wives or whatever. I'm like, that is insane and sounds disgusting.
They act like it's such a fucking treat.
When I'm like, you could just have coffee.
Yeah, bitch, have a hot drink. Have a cold coffee. Now this is my personal opinion. The rules are fucking weird around drinks.
Yeah.
They just are. Anyway, so when Sharif confronted Jen with the facts of Mormonism and its past history with racism, she recalled thinking, are you kidding me? And when she realized that Black people weren't really accepted in the Mormon church until the 1970s, she decided that she would transition.
A lot of places.
That she would transition from the Mormon faith to Islam. And it was a much more inclusive faith.
Which we love. I love. I won't speak for you.
Oh yeah, I think any faith is great, as long as it's not seeking to dismantle the freedoms and rights of others. Jen officially made the switch to Islam when her son was roughly 5 years old. And she said that 5 years into her marriage, and we had our first son, and I didn't want to confuse him with these competing religions in one household. So that was another reason she decided to make the leap to Islam. Before she made this change in her personal life, Jen had already begun to experiment with different business ventures. And it started as really small and local endeavors. And they were legitimate. And they also helped to plant the seed of her future public persona. These early experiences taught her that persuasion and presentation were huge when it came to business. And she started to help craft her persona around what she saw resonated with people in business. As Jen fully transitioned into adulthood and being a business professional, there was this aspect behind the polished image and all of the glitzy camera moments where Jen began orchestrating an elaborate scam that operated with military precision. Long before her rise to reality TV fame.
Military precision?
Yeah, the diva was on it.
Until it didn't.
A hidden empire was taking shape. A sophisticated telemarketing fraud designed to exploit the vulnerable. Central to this criminal enterprise was something called a lead list. Do you know what a lead list is?
It sounds like a list of contact information for particular people, and you're going to probably hear 99 no's, but there will be one yes out of every 100, and that one yes is where you're going to get the money from.
So yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's also what people thought Jen Shah was doing as her business, that she would generate lead list based off of like data mining and data analysis, that her company was simply creating lists for businesses of potential leads. And that's exactly what earlier in the moment where I was talking about in the van and how Whitney Rose was explaining Jen Shah's business, that's what she explained. She said, from everything I understand, Jen is in the business of data mining, data analysis, and then using that to create lead lists for other businesses. It didn't stop there. You see, these lead lists weren't random collections of names. They were meticulously compiled databases. They were built over time from public records, purchased data, and in some instances, compromised sources.
Was there demographic information?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So they knew for this person, we can most likely get money out of them if we approach it from this angle.
There was targeted exploitation of the elderly, the retired, groups like that. When people talk about the fear of their data privacy related to Facebook, other websites that collect our data, that's what they're talking about. All of those different metrics that help companies advertise to us. And that's kind of what Jen Shah had access to and used to create these lead lists. Now, each of these lists contained detailed personal and financial information, and again, targeted seniors, working class individuals, and somehow they were able to determine what groups of people would be less likely to question an overly persuasive sales pitch. So there was this kind of ongoing continuum or metric that helped them decide who to target. These lists were continually updated and refined, ensuring that the operation always had a fresh stream of potential victims. Any thoughts?
That's how these schemes work. You have to constantly have new victims coming in so that you can pay out to the older victims if it is operating as a Ponzi scheme.
I think it was less of a pyramid and more of a dyad, where they didn't recruit people to work for them. It was they did all of it themselves. It was direct to this consumer, and the consumer gave directly to them.
Is a Ponzi scheme directly the same as a pyramid scheme?
I don't believe so, no.
I don't either. So I'm not talking about a pyramid scheme, and if I am accidentally, please ignore my ignorance. And
No. You were just, when you were talking just now, it kind of sounded like MLM, LuLaRoe.
No, Ponzi scheme is, give me $5,000, I can invest it and turn it into something else. And then I keep doing that to people, but instead of doing anything with that money, I just spend it and that goes into my pocket. And when you ask me for your $5,000 back plus interest or whatever, then I take the money that I get from other people, new victims, and I pay you out with the money that I take from them. And it's really just like...
And Jen Shah never did that.
It's robbing Peter to pay Paul, but in a system that I've created to be that.
One of the things that they sold were fake classes on creating a better website or driving traffic to your website. Classes.
So somebody taught them these things, or they paid for them and they never got the product?
I think they got the product.
It was just not actually.
Good. Yeah.
It was not actually anybody who knew anything about driving traffic.
And when it didn't work, they would say, actually, you need the next course. And we're going to talk more about that when we talk about the victims, but it was kind of like that ad infinitum. It was just again and again and again. And that's because you need the next course.
That's just the basic. And you need pro, and then you need premium, and you need platinum.
It was exactly kind of that. And there was never any money back to the victims, to the older victims, to original victims.
It's just continuing to take more money from them.
She would push the finish line further ahead. So...
Oh, Jen.
Once a victim's information was secured, specialized telemarketing teams sprang into action. These teams would repeatedly contact the victims, employing relentless upselling tactics. They began by offering low-cost introductory courses or introductory services with promises of business coaching and website development, and they offered it at prices that seemed too good to pass up. Then, through a series of well-timed follow-up calls, they introduced additional upgrades.
The missed opportunity here is that this probably would have been more effective as a pyramid scheme. You teach a course to somebody, and it's not a real course. They get a certificate at the end where then they can advertise and teach the course.
She didn't do anything that she couldn't have done legally. Like, she could have taken all of this chutzpah, all of this can-do attitude, all of this relentless marketing, and done it legally, is what I kind of feel as I was researching. I was like, this diva could have had a legitimate business. It would have been scummy,
right?
But it wouldn't have been illegal.
Yeah. But instead. The issue for me, I find it so annoying because I'm like, so you're going through all of the effort to offer these different classes. Mm-hmm. If you just put in the effort to actually make the classes good, then you would have a good product. And then you would have a good consumer.
I think you're missing that would have required way too much overhead.
It wouldn't. It would not. You record it and people have to pay to... Okay. I feel like sometimes people in the long run, this takes more effort than front loading the work and then just kind of building a little bit after the fact. And I get frustrated by that because I'm like, you end up doing more work than you need to.
Each transaction was structured meticulously. Payments were broken down into smaller sums, deliberately kept just below the federal reporting threshold. This clever tactic made it nearly impossible for banks to flag the cash flow as suspicious. At the heart of this operation was the infamous Shah Squad. Far more than mere assistants, they were the skilled operatives managing the entire workflow. This team was responsible for not only maintaining the lead list, but also coordinating the continuous barrage of calls. Also, just for some added context, Jen Shah, when she was on The Real Housewives, had what she called the Shah Squad. She had like 4 assistants with her at all times. Like they were always there with her because they were doing her evil bidding. Not saying every one of them was, I don't know. But I know that her number 1 assistant definitely was.
I don't understand why you would need all of them there at all times with you.
I think part of it made Jen feel powerful. It made her feel important.
Again, it's also possibly television.
That's true too.
It's possible that she had them there for the appearance of, look at how
there was an image that she wanted to cultivate.
Yeah, and it's likely that when the cameras were not there that they weren't all attached at the hip.
Yeah.
I find reality TV production fascinating more and more.
Yeah. This team was responsible for not only maintaining the lead list, but also coordinating the barrage of calls. They had internal protocols in place, detailed scripts, follow-up schedules that ensured that every contact with a victim was systematic and relentless. And that's how the federal prosecutor of the Southern District of New York described it. These protocols dictated everything from the tone of the call to the precise language used to convince victims to commit to further payments. In essence, the Shah Squad was the engine that drove the scam, keeping the system running smoothly and maximizing the extraction of funds. As the domestic operation grew, so did the ambition to evade detection. And by 2017, Jen Shah was facing a little more scrutiny from U.S. law enforcement. So she made a strategic pivot. She expanded her operations internationally and established a telemarketing hub in Kosovo. This move was a calculated effort to exploit international jurisdictional loopholes. Operating from Kosovo allowed the scam to benefit from less stringent regulatory oversight and also really complicated the tracing of financial transactions. The international expansion not only diversified the operational base, but added a really critical layer of obfuscation, and it made it way more difficult for authorities to track what was going on, because at this point, they had started to set their eyes on Jen Shah and her operation.
I'm so perplexed because I'm like, did she set out intentionally to scam people? Did she know, like, where did her knowledge of these loopholes come from? Was that a collaborative effort where somebody was like, oh, we could do this? Like, was there an element of this that was her being, I don't know, naive? I'm not saying entirely, but I'm always so interested how people get here because, and I mean, I guess it shows by the way that I live my life. But I don't know how you learn all of these things. Like, how do you get to the point where you're like, I know how to effectively rip people off and live a luxurious life in doing that?
I understand your question, and I think I'm going to answer it for you in another few paragraphs.
Okay.
I'm sure it was posed more rhetorically than anything, but some of the things you talk about are discussed.
Okay. Yeah, it was more rhetorical because I don't think that we can ever really truly know.
Right.
So, but I just always wonder, like, are people born wicked or do they have wickedness thrust upon them? I'm not saying she's wicked. That's not what I'm saying.
Well, you might change your tune.
But I'm not saying that. Even if I think that she might be later on, I am not saying that she's wicked. I think wicked has a very specific connotation.
And sum, every aspect of the scheme, from the intricate construction of the lead list, that precise structuring of transactions, and the disciplined operational standing of the Shah squad, all of it really contributed to this massive self-sustaining fraud. As the empire expanded, the sophistication also expanded. Jen Shah's approach wasn't about executing a scam anymore. It became almost this masterclass of digital and financial subterfuge, creating confusion and smoke screens. At the heart of her strategy, and this was not always the case, but as it continued to grow, they began to use encrypted services for all of their communications, and Shah's inner circle communicated exclusively. My phone is on Do Not Disturb. I don't know why it is sending through notifications. Shah's inner circle communicated exclusively via encrypted messaging platforms. For example, on Telegram, Jen operated under the alias Becky White. I don't know why Becky White, but that was the name she was using.
Is it psychologically because people felt that Betty White was like a treasured thing and it's very similar?
Maybe people don't feel intimidated by someone named Becky. They assume that they have good intentions.
And good hair.
Not only did Jen Shah use Telegram, but court documents reveal that she also directed her co-conspirators to adopt multiple other encrypted messaging applications. In 2016, Shah specifically ordered someone identified as Quiles, along with others such as Anthony Cheedy, to abandon ordinary text messages and shift all discussions related to the business opportunity scheme onto these secure channels. This deliberate move was critical. It ensured that all of the internal communication was shielded from any kind of interception, which did create a bit of a digital fortress for her and her co-conspirators. But encryption was only one facet of her deception. Financially, Shah engineered a series of intricate tactics to obscure the operations. So large sums of money were never moved in a single transaction. So much like when she would take payments and only accept them under a certain threshold, she did the same with the moving money and the money management. So they would really go in and methodically divide all of their money movements into much smaller deposits and withdrawals to keep it again below any kind of reporting threshold. This, again, made it very difficult for banks of any kind to find suspicious activity. Also, there's evidence that Shah layered her financial operations through a complex network of shell companies registered under third-party names, and all of these companies acted as financial buffers. So funds would flow from one entity to another, creating almost kind of a maze. This multi-layered maze designed to help confuse anyone who was trying to trace the money back to its original source. Also, Shah ensured that all electronic versions of cell scripts and internal communications were removed and erased from computers, erasing any digital footprints that might have later provided evidence of her fraudulent dealings. Shah also made use of offshore accounts for direct payments, and by channeling those funds outside of the U.S., she exploited international banking regulations and jurisdictional loopholes, adding yet another layer of protection from authorities. While these technical and financial tactics were executed behind closed doors, Shah's public persona was cultivated as an equally formidable distraction. On camera, she consistently showcased a lifestyle of unrestrained luxury. Again, lavish parties, opulent decor, high-end designer shopping sprees, extravagant entertainment. Whether she was debuting a new designer handbag or hosting a soiree, every public display was meant to show her wealth, her success. Also, I think it was indeed cultivated to create this image of someone who was more materially and externally driven than someone who would operate a money laundering scheme, a Ponzi scheme. She's so caught up in her superfluous lifestyle. How could she be capable of doing X, Y, and Z? I can see you're having thoughts.
Yeah, because I don't know what type of scheme category this even falls into. Because it's not Ponzi, because she's not ever shelling money back out to the people. Mm-hmm. And it's not pyramid because, I mean, I described the business model that would have been pyramid.
It's officially categorized as telemarketing fraud.
I guess they know best about categories. Category is telemarketing fraud. I just don't even know how you get here. It's so confusing to me. How do you get to this point? But again, I don't think it's something that I could understand. I don't think I'm capable of understanding how you get here.
While Jen was cultivating and perpetuating this glitz and glamour and opulent lifestyle on television, a relentless federal investigation had begun to unfold. A probe that would ultimately expose the elaborate fraud orchestrated by Jen Shah. Federal agents were working across multiple jurisdictions and began to connect the dots through an astonishing volume of financial records and wiretap recordings. These recordings captured heated exchanges among Shah's inner circle, with operative chatter that discussed in detail how to structure payments to avoid bank alerts, a seemingly small detail that when pieced with the thousands of other transactions, painted a much bigger picture of systemic deception. Investigators poured over bank statements, transaction records, and emails, and all of this was to try to trace that flow of the millions of dollars that went through the labyrinth of offshore accounts, shell companies, third-party names.
When you say shell companies, do you mean the gas station?
No, like... if...
Like a facade, something that sounds like something on the outside, but it's really hollow on the
inside. It's a fake company.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to say this is a company, but it only exists so I can shuffle money through it so no one can detect that it's coming from some other place. Yeah.
That is laundering, right?
Yes, I think.
So money laundering as part of a telemarketing scam?
Telemarketing fraud.
Okay.
Authorities were almost kind of overwhelmed with the levels of safeguards that they had in place and just how widespread this con was running. And key cooperating witnesses, including former employees who had once worked directly with the notorious Shah Squad, provided the crucial insights needed to fill in the gaps of this labyrinth, this financial puzzle. In these interviews, these former employees who were helping were also doing this behind the scenes. So Jen Shah was not aware at the time that former employees and even current employees were doing these things. And that's also kind of when Monica Garcia enters the picture as someone who's like working undercover for the feds. She would send them information. So this kind of catches us back up to that vignette I discussed about the bus. So on March 30th, 2021, Jen Shah was arrested while filming The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. She had run off under the guise of needing to take care of Coach Shah.
I think that's the other thing. It's like, you're going to get caught if you're going to insist on being a part of... You should have laid low. Would you have gotten caught either way? Maybe, but I don't think that it helped your cause being on a television show. I think that puts a spotlight on you. It does put a spotlight on you. I don't even have to just think that. It puts a spotlight on you, and that ends up being the downfall of some people. Some people, they're on a show and they become famous and then they don't know what to do with the money or the whatever, and they commit crimes. And then you've got other people who are so full of themselves or whatever, maybe narcissistic, I'm not really sure, but they put themselves in the spotlight because they can't help it, but that is what ends up being their downfall.
Yeah. And
highlights the crimes that they've committed.
This need for like self-grandiosity is ultimately their undoing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of exactly what happened. So she receives this call, she leaves, and within minutes, federal agents and NYPD officers had swarmed the strip mall location looking for Jen Shah.
Do we know who called her?
No, we never find out who called her. Some have postulated that it was her first assistant, Stuart Smith. He was like her number one guy.
Right-hand man.
It could have been Coach Shah, but it's also believed, potentially, maybe, allegedly, that Coach Shah warned her, but also that he had to be removed from the situation so he wouldn't also get in trouble. And so I can't say either way for sure. We don't know who called her, or at least... I don't know. And from what I remember, no one else does either, except Jen Shah, because she still holds that it was Coach Shah being sick.
I guess it's possible that he was like, I need to get her off that bus. I need to get her off of wherever. Let me make up a fake story that's urgent and make sure she comes. I don't think that it's... Okay, I'm putting on my reality TV producer hat.
Okay. Come on, Fenton Bailey.
Oh, whoa.
That's his name, right? Fenton Bailey?
That's competition reality. This is reality.
And what's his name? Michael Barbaro. No, that's a New York Times host. What's the other one's name? Fenton Bailey. Fenton Bailey.
It's fine.
World of Wonder, if you want to pick up our podcast and produce it, we're here. We're ready. We'll be sloppy. We'll make it gayer. We'll bring on drag queens to tell us true crime stories.
We'll edit out the part where Hayden said...
Yeah, I don't know her. Unless Willem and Alaska want to make us part of. Honestly, I would take a mom podcast way sooner than I would take a WoW podcast. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I think you could view it one of two ways. Is it a lot of drama to have somebody arrested while they're on your bus? Sure, maybe. I think I would want to immediately try to put as much distance as possible between me and this person because they gave her a platform under the impression that she was probably operating a legal business. So they put her on the show believing that she was...
They knew she was rich, fabulous, and dramatic.
Right.
And she lived in Salt Lake City.
But the rich part, I think that if you're producing a show, you want people on your show to be rich authentically, because if they're not, they could go to prison and then you no longer have them on your show for the ratings.
She was authentically rich, but not by legal means.
So it's not authentic. If it's not legal, it's not authentic. I mean, you've got the money, but...
She has the money.
But
it was real richness.
I assume.
We'll see.
She's probably done a stint in the pen. And it sounds like the federal penitentiary.
In this moment when this happens, when they're swarmed and start asking questions, you see the women and they're just like, what the fuck is going on? Like frightened. It's happening in front of Heather Gay's business. So she has to hop out of the van and be like, what's going on? It was a really...
That's the better show.
Yeah.
Is having her off the bus and having the women be like, WTF.
They do the whole ride there, like the 4-hour ride. They're trying to figure it out.
The producer said, Jen, if you want to still be on this show whenever you're done doing whatever it is that you're about to do, you better not spill the beans that I am placing this phone call. Get off the bus now. Say that Coach is sick, say whatever, but get off the bus right now.
Yeah. And I mean, she did, and it did make for some really, really good TV. I'm not trying to give Jen Shah props because what she did is disgusting and evil and awful. But my God, I wish I could feel the high of watching that scene for the first time again. I wish I could feel the bliss that came with watching all of these women lose their mind, call their lawyers, try to piece together everything that Jen Shah had done. Talk about the lavishness of her lifestyle. Like, it just, chef's kiss. They did such a good job. Like, I want to work for Bravo. I want to be a producer. And Andy Cohen, if you're listening, I'll do whatever it takes.
We barely get our own family to listen. I don't think Andy
I'll do whatever it takes. NBC, Universal, Peacock, whomever, whatever. Because I think I would be a great producer on The Real Housewives, as long as I don't have to deal with Lisa Barlow.
I would be in such a moral conundrum trying to produce reality TV because I see how to do it. I know how to do it. I've studied plenty of it. My pattern recognition is there.
Is this even a true crime podcast anymore? Today it has just been reality TV.
You made it a Real Housewives podcast today, and I didn't sign off on it, but I'm here. There was a crime. It works. It does feel a little bit like punishment because I haven't put any Real Housewives on yet. Not that I am being punished with this story, but it does feel like it. Well, if you're not going to listen to it, then
I'm going to make you. I'm going to trap you.
But you saying that you wish that you could relive watching it the first time, which is great. Look, listeners, Hayden only became this invested in Real Housewives in the last 3 months.
Yeah.
If it's been that long.
Yeah, really.
All right. Back to our reality TV podcast.
In that defining moment, Federal agents took Jen Shah into custody. They caught her right after she left. Like, not even 10 minutes later, they found her driving. The full scale of a meticulously concealed criminal enterprise was laid bare. And the investigation's painstaking efforts, from decrypted wiretaps to an avalanche of financial data, had culminated in this dramatic takedown that, this is so over-embellished. I'm so sorry. This is how I felt.
Oh, I was going to say by you.
And a dramatic takedown that sent shockwaves through the nation.
I'm still feeling the effects of the shockwaves hitting me.
Why do you think Trump was elected?
2021. It can't be a reality TV and political podcast today.
The arrest not only shattered the illusion of this grandiosity, but it shifted public perception. For many, the fallout from Jen's elaborate scam was not just a financial setback. It was a life-altering tragedy. Behind every fraudulent transaction lay real people whose dreams, dignity, and futures were all brutally shattered.
I want to know, the person who was taken advantage of the most, how much did they end up shelling out?
I'm about to tell you.
Okay.
So first, let's consider Trisha, a 75-year-old retiree from North Carolina. Before the scam, Trisha had spent decades saving for a peaceful retirement, nurturing dreams of quiet stability, a nice, secure future.
Do we know what Trisha did for a living?
No. Then enticed by promises of a groundbreaking online business opportunity, she invested her life's savings. Over time, relentless telemarketing calls wore down her resistance until she lost roughly half of her retirement funds, an astonishing $47,000.
I don't know how we got here from selling courses.
Do you remember when I said that part of their scheme was constantly the upsell? Like, you need another course. Or, oh, you need to invest in this package. Or, oh, you need like direct coaching. Stuff like that. In a heart-wrenching interview, Trisha confessed, I invested more than half of the savings I had for retirement. I gave them directly $47,000. And this betrayal left her not only financially ruined, but emotionally devastated. She struggled to come to terms with the loss of security that she had taken decades to build. So I guess it really wasn't quite her life's savings, but still, savings from her life.
It's
a lot of money.
$50,000.
For a 75-year-old woman.
And before Trump tanked the economy. So it was...
Wow. Wow. Political podcast. I invested, in Iowa.
I was like, you did what? You didn't even know about these women in 2020.
In Iowa, Molly McLaughlin's story paints an equally painful picture. A determined single mother, Molly had fought to provide a better life for her children. Convinced by persuasive promises of life-changing business coaching, she ventured into the scam with hope for financial independence. Instead, Molly found herself drowning in debt, maxing out multiple credit cards, and accumulating an overwhelming $44,000. The financial collapse forced her into bankruptcy, leaving her struggling to afford basic necessities and shattering her aspirations for a stable future.
When something sounds too good to be true, it is.
Sometimes we are a little bit responsible for our own pain.
Right. So I'm a single mom of 2 dogs, and I can't afford a lot of things. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't invest in something where it's like, you're going to get this money back, because I'm like, how? Explain it to me like I'm 5. How do I get this money back?
Perhaps the most heartrending case is that of 92-year-old World War II veteran Ralph Halleck, a man who had lived frugally, saving every penny for retirement after a lifetime of sacrifice. He was drawn into the scam with promises of a new beginning. But the deception proved fatal. He lost over $100,000, essentially his entire life savings. He was overwhelmed by despair. His family later revealed that the crushing financial blow not only stripped him of his security, but also led him to take his own life. This tragic loss serves as a stark reminder that the impact of such fraud extends far beyond bank balances.
Yeah, that's common to have at least one victim in a money scheme that takes their life because they don't have anything. And how do you Like they worked hard to have it and then somebody like steals it from them and there's no way that you recover it.
Yeah.
She may be ordered to pay $15 million back to people. They'll never see it. They'll never see a penny of it.
His family member is quoted as saying, "My father lost over $100,000 to Jen Shah's scam. He was devastated, and not long after he took his own life." Also, I don't believe I wrote this down, but if I remember correctly, Trisha, and this is a paraphrase, but is essentially quoted as saying, "Yeah, I was foolish. I was dumb in the way that I continued to give money to this program to Jen Shah, but I was so hopeful."
Right. Once you put the first installment in, once you buy the first thing, then it's like, well, if I don't pay the next one, then that was a waste of my money.
Mm-hmm.
That was a waste of my investment. I understand once you get in how you continue to go. I don't know that I continue to go $47,000, $100,000.
Right.
But I understand how once you get people in, then it's easy to get the second and third payment. You're probably not going to get a fourth payment out of me.
These stories were not isolated, and across the country there were countless victims, often from communities of limited financial resilience. They found themselves repeatedly targeted. For many, the scam wasn't just a single misfortune, but a prolonged assault, with victims being upsold multiple times until their funds were completely drained. The psychological toll was immense. Feelings of shame, betrayal, and helplessness permeated their daily lives. Many spoke of the overwhelming stress that led to sleepless nights, strained family relationships, and in some cases, a complete loss of self-worth. In court, these heart-wrenching testimonies resonated powerfully. Victims described not only the financial ruination, but also the emotional devastation of realizing that the promises of prosperity were nothing more than a cruel illusion. Letters detailed the irreversible damage, the shattered dreams of retirees, the ruined credit of hardworking parents, and the profound isolation of those left to rebuild their lives from nothing. Each testimony underscored a single haunting truth. When fraud preys on the vulnerable, its cost is measured in more than dollars. Through every tear and every anguished declaration, the victims' stories revealed the true devastating impact of Jen Shah's scheme. As the evidence against her mounted, the courtroom became the stage for a dramatic reckoning, the atmosphere charged with tension. A blend of media frenzy, victim testimony, and the cold weight of justice. In a packed Manhattan courtroom on July 11th, 2022, Jen Shah's carefully constructed public image began to crumble under the force of incontrovertible evidence. Faced with intercepted communications that laid bare detailed instructions on structuring payments below reporting thresholds, and internal documents linking her to a labyrinth of shell companies, Shah's defense faltered. U.S. Attorney Damian Williams, with measured gravitas, stated, "The evidence leaves no doubt that Ms. Shah systematically exploited vulnerable individuals over nearly a decade." His words reverberated throughout the courtroom, as every attendee felt the magnitude of the betrayal. In a pivotal moment, Shah's longtime assistant, her number one Shah squad, Stuart Smith, took the stand. His testimony, raw and unvarnished, painted a damning portrayal of Shah's control over the fraudulent operation. Smith recounted with a tremor in his voice how he had been coerced into participating, and how his eventual cooperation was a reluctant admission of the scam's true scope. His words, "I was freed from her iron grip the moment I decided to tell the truth," became a turning point that left little doubt about her culpability. Also, while this was happening, she was still on The Real Housewives. And there's a scene where she receives a phone call from her defense attorney when they inform her that Stuart Smith has flipped and he'll now be testifying for the prosecution. She lost her fucking mind. She called him scum, all of these terrible things. And I was like, yeah, this is a really big reaction for someone who's innocent, because she maintained her innocence the entire time she was on the show. She remained on the show until she was put in prison. Bravo caught heat for that too, for platforming Jen Shah after.
That's why I was saying I would want to immediately, once I had even a whiff of something going on, to immediately start putting distance between myself and this person.
Yeah.
Because it's easier to salvage.
When she went to trial, because she would not take a plea, When she went to trial, two of the housewives, Heather Gay, who was her closest friend, and Meredith Marks, who she had had a feud with but had been friends with, both went to New York to support her. They were in the city with her. They were there to support her. Under mounting pressure, Jen Shah's resolve finally broke. In a tearful allocution, she admitted that the services she offered were of little or no value. The courtroom felt silent as her confession resonated with the full force of her actions. Despite pleas from her defense team, who argued she had been misled and expressed remorse, prosecutors pressed for a sentence that reflected the gravity of her crimes. So ultimately, Jen Shah confessed and said, yeah, I did it.
But wouldn't take a plea.
Not before. She pushed it all the way till the end, and then she had to go in and say, okay, yeah, I am guilty. Please spare me. And I was like, these two divas are here thinking that you're like proclaiming your innocence. And you go into the courtroom and that's how they find out by news notification alert that you're guilty, that you admitted to your guilt. On January 6th, 2023, Judge Sidney H. Stein delivered a sentence that was somewhat surprising. Jen Shah was handed a 78-month prison term, or 6.5 years behind bars, along with 5 years of supervised release.
There's no way she did 6 years.
The judge's remarks were both stern and reflective. Your actions have not only depleted the savings of innocent people, but they have eroded the trust our society depends on. In addition, Shah was ordered to forfeit approximately $6.5 million in ill-gotten gains and ordered to pay nearly $6.645 million in restitution to the victims whose lives were shattered by her deception. These proceedings marked the unmasking of a fraudster whose on-screen glamour had masked a deeply exploitative enterprise. The verdict, underscored by the stark contrast between her sentence and the much lighter penalty received by her co-conspirator, Stuart Smith. He got 9 months, but he took a plea deal and then testified for the prosecution.
Right.
Set a clear message.
I bet that was part of the deal.
I bet it sure was. I bet it was. No amount of celebrity can insulate one from the consequences of their crime. That's a hopeful sentiment.
That can't be true.
As the echoes of the courtroom fade, the long-term impact of Jen Shah's actions continue to reverberate. Today, as of March 2025, Jen Shah remains incarcerated at Bryan Federal Prison Camp in Texas, a stark and unyielding contrast to the lavish... Is it not Bryan? Is it Huntsville?
I know that there's a prison in Huntsville.
Let me double check.
That wasn't my face, though.
What was your face?
That she's in Texas.
Oh, yeah. You know who she's with? Elizabeth fucking Holmes. Yeah, Bryan Federal Prison Camp in Texas. Okay.
Yeah, federal. Huntsville, I don't think is federal.
No, I think it's a state prison. I think you're right. A stark contrast to the lavish lifestyle once paraded on the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. In prison, Shah has faced a reality far removed from the glitter of celebrity. She has embraced rehabilitation programs. Now Jen Shah tutors fellow inmates, leads exercise classes, and actively participates in anger management sessions. That bitch had the most explosive anger on Real Housewives. Ugh, she would just fight and it would just be so good, so entertaining. It was really bad, bad mental health. But she knew how to fight. She knew how to scrap.
Yeah.
She knew how to read.
You know, I don't like that.
I know, I love it.
There's no way that you are queen of convincing people that the classes that you offer are worth their time and money.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go to prison and you're like, you know what? Let me offer classes in here. 1, I hate that.
What can you say? She's a teacher.
2, no. 2,
she's a giver. Why the fuck did these keep coming through? I literally have it and do not disturb.
I don't like the idea that she's in the same place as Elizabeth Holmes. I don't like the idea that these people who are clearly crafty, manipulative, scheming, brained humans are given unfettered access to sit around and plot, plan, and scheme some more.
Mm-hmm. There's photographs of them together outside doing rec and talking.
Yeah, scheming.
These efforts, while a far cry from her former extravagance, represent a tentative step towards acknowledging the gravity of her crimes and the lives she irrevocably damaged. Financial consequences do persist. The court ordered mandates that Shah forfeit approximately $6.5 million and require her to pay nearly $6.5 million in restitution. a figure meant to compensate the countless victims of her elaborate scam, federal authorities have imposed wage garnishments on any income she might generate.
But this happens all the time, and so then they create systems to subvert the money so that it's never reported, which clearly she's got knowledge about. And so then the victims never see a penny, even when they've got garnished wages, even when they're ordered to pay, even when X, Y, and Z, the victims never see any of the money.
Yeah.
Can we fix that system? Can we fix whatever that is?
Beyond the personal punishment, the case has sparked widespread cultural and societal reflection. The public, once enamored with Jen Shah and her persona, now see a cautionary tale of how the allure of fame can sometimes camouflage a dark underbelly of deceit. Media commentators and legal experts alike have debated the intersection of celebrity and fraud, urging viewers to look beyond surface appearances and question the source of wealth. Some of the things that I didn't include in my final script, but are things that I remember, is that before she went to trial, she made and profited from merch that said "Justice for Jen," which is really gross.
Going to prison, that's the justice.
I do know that 25% of every check from the Real Housewives that she receives goes straight to those, what is the word again? Restitution payments. Mm. And so there is a level of some of that finance going back to the victims.
They're recuperating some, but that passive income is not, it can't be a ton because she's not currently on the show. So it's maybe she gets a couple $100 every month for it. So now you're talking $25, $50, $75 being put into the restitution account with how many victims that it's paying out to?
Yeah, who knows? It's also worth noting that the prosecution really pushed for a sentence of 11 to 14 years, but that's not what came to bear out. So
you mean to tell me that she did not use her tagline in court?
I'm going to tell you something that you're going to like even less. Oh, and further details. In May 2023, they requested and obtained a court order to garnish 25% of Shah's disposable earnings from Shed Media, the production company behind Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. And court records indicate that Shah earned approximately $34,000 per episode, so roughly $5,000 per episode. Jen Shah, also part of the reclamation of wealth and the money, was taking 81 designer items and taking them and selling them. And I wrote the list down because I was really fascinated by that. So excuse me, it was 108 luxury items, including counterfeit handbags. 41 were genuine luxury pieces and 67 were counterfeit designer knockoffs. Among the authentic items was a Cartier Love bracelet, which is gold and diamond, a Louis Vuitton Keepall Bandolier 50 travel bag, a Chanel Classic flap bag, a Hermes, how do they say it?
Hermes.
An Hermes Birkin bag, authenticated, and a Fendi Montresor mini bucket bag. I won't get into all of the inauthentic pieces. Her sentence has also... Are you fucking kidding me? I just deleted the app that kept popping up. So it was just a week before the trial that Jen abruptly changed her plea to guilty. And while Jen Shah does still today sit behind bars, her sentence has been reduced from its original severity. And I want to tell you what those exact details are. So her sentence, which was originally 78 months, has been reduced. Does Do Not Disturb not even work? Her sentence has been reduced twice. Her new release date is November 19th, 2027. The reason for this, good behavior and great participation in rehabilitation programs.
Yeah, great.
Has she truly changed?
She's been scheming with Elizabeth Holmes.
Her lawyers say yes.
She's teaching classes, which is what got her into this whole mess to begin with.
They say that Jen is serving her sentence with courage and purpose.
What was her original release date? I mean, how much has this really been?
I don't know, but I know it's been reduced twice.
Yeah, but it doesn't sound like it's been reduced all that much. She was arrested in 2021. She got a 6.5-year
I don't
sentence.
think she was charged until late 2022. Not charged. I don't think she was sentenced until late 2022.
Yeah, but sentencing still takes into account time served beforehand.
Initially 78 months. She first went to prison in January 2023. So her original release date was set for 2029. Almost immediately after beginning her sentence, it was reduced by 1 year to August 30th, 2028. Later, it was reduced to December 19th, 2027. And by January 2025, her release date had been again moved to November 3rd, 2026. Most recently, as of March 2025, her release date has now been set for October 4th, 2026. Which is coincidentally her 52nd birthday. So it's changed more than twice.
Yeah, I think she's either getting out at the end of 2025 or the beginning of 2026. October.
With the way things are going.
Yeah, it's like every month it's another month knocked off. So at some point we're going to meet in the middle and...
She's just had really good behavior. She's rehabilitated.
She's doing the same shit on the inside that got her into this predicament.
And it's going to be what gets her out.
It's going to be what gets her out. And she's going to come out and she's going to do whatever she was doing, but less traceable and better.
She's going to be better at the con.
Mm-hmm.
There's been discussion about whether or not...
Planning and scheming with Elizabeth Holmes and whoever else. Those are just the two names that I know, but I'm sure there are other masterminds in there with the same white-collar bullshit. And they're all scheming.
There's been conversation about whether or not she'll return to the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. And, I mean, we know they don't have any problem with that. Hello, Teresa Giudice.
Whatever. According to Drag Race. Several of them. How many of them have been to prison? Several of them have.
And a lot of her former...
RuPaul tells you. What does RuPaul say?
We're all born naked and the rest is drag.
Pay your taxes. That's what gets most of them.
And her former co-stars, several of them have said that they would be open to filming with her again. At least they would be more open to filming with her than they would be Monica Garcia. They hate Monica.
Because she snitched?
No, they hate Monica because they found out she was Reality Von Tease, or she was part of the Reality Von Tease group, which was an Instagram account that constantly harassed and perpetuated rumors about the women of the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City.
I don't know why I know that, but that is ringing so many bells for me.
Yeah. They also hate her because she's not rich. She's a very average person, average home, an open carport. They literally made fun of her having an open carport.
Instead of a garage.
Yeah.
Even I have a garage.
The pores out here, says the person living in an apartment. So that's the story of Jen Shah.
I hate hearing about vulnerable people being taken advantage of, but it happens. And so I'm glad that you told me this case because I do enjoy reality TV. I prefer competition reality, but any opportunity to sit around and talk about some frivolous stuff works for me. I was going to say nobody died, but our veteran did.
Yeah. Poor Ralph. I also do want to note that it's not something we can prove that he took his own life.
That's what his
from the fraud, but it does seem that that's what the family believes.
Yeah, I'm sure when you don't have anything else, you're like, well, what can I do now? I enjoyed talking about reality TV on our crime podcast because there's plenty of crossover there.
Me too. It was enjoyable.
Yeah.
Oh, also happy Women's History Month.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I did this story.
You came in today and said, is this episode coming out in March? And I said yes. And you said, oh, good.
See, I had it in mind. I knew. As we discussed suicide and suicidality today, we do want to direct you to 988 in the instance that you're struggling with any difficult thoughts related to suicide or other mental health crises.
A complete list of sources and any links can be found in the show notes.
And that's all we've got for this episode. If you enjoyed listening and want to hear more, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, leave a review.
Recommend us to a friend, and then make sure that you are visiting Apple podcast, whether that's where you listen or not, to leave us that 5-star rating.
Make sure you're following us on End of Crime Pod on Instagram at End of Crime Pod.
Our email address is endofcrimepod@gmail.com, so feel free to reach out with questions or episode suggestions.
And if you thought this ending was pre-recorded, guess the fuck what? We are just muddling through it every time.
It's a little different every time.
Yeah, so thank you for listening this far, if you are.
Until the next crime.